911, what's your emergency? I need the police. I'm heading south on Riverside Drive near the CVS pharmacy. There were gunshots. I heard at least 3 shots. When I passed by, I saw 2 people on the ground. 2 men and a woman standing over them. When officers arrived at the CVS parking lot on that cold November evening in 2019, they encountered a scene of absolute chaos. 2 men lay motionless on the asphalt, both suffering from critical gunshot wounds. One victim, 38-year-old Marcus Bennett, a prominent defense attorney, was already deceased. The other was Detective James Crawford of the Portland Police Department, still clinging to life despite a serious head wound. Standing nearby, seemingly uninjured, was Detective Crawford's wife of 19 years, Nicole Crawford. She was found kneeling beside her husband, hysterical and covered in blood, insisting to responding officers that she had witnessed the entire horrific incident unfold. Welcome to True Crime Files. If this story is already sending chills down your spine, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell and share. Your support means the world to me. A small caliber handgun lay approximately 6 feet from the bodies. Crime scene investigators quickly determined it was the only firearm present at the scene. Detective Crawford was immediately transported to Oregon Health and Science University Hospital for emergency surgery. Meanwhile, Nicole was brought to the Portland Police Bureau's Central Precinct, where she was placed in an interview room to provide her witness statement. The lead investigators made an unusual decision. Before sitting down with Nicole, they wanted to check on Detective Crawford's condition and, if possible, get his version of events first. Do you remember what happened tonight, James? Can you tell us what happened at the CVS? My wife. Where's Nicole? Is she okay? She's fine. She's safe. Was she with you tonight? Yes, she was there. Did you meet her there or did you go there together? No, I went to meet her. My daughter told me. Emma told me Nicole was there. Your daughter Emma told you Nicole was at CVS? Yeah. James, do you remember any kind of fight or struggle with anyone? There was another man. He was there with her. What happened with this other man? We fought. He came at me. You fought with him? What was the fight about? Nicole. It was about my wife. What happened during this fight, James? I don't remember everything. It happened so fast. Did you know this man? The one you fought with? Yeah. His name is Marcus. Marcus Bennett. He's a lawyer. Nicole works for him. What was the fight about exactly, James? He shot me. He had a gun and he shot me. Investigators couldn't extract any additional information from the wounded detective. However, forensic technicians at the scene had already made a crucial discovery. The weapon recovered from the parking lot was registered to Nicole Crawford. This raised an immediate and troubling question. How did 2 men sustain gunshot wounds from the same firearm? And what sequence of events led to this deadly confrontation? With Detective Crawford unable to provide more details, investigators returned to the precinct to interview Nicole. At this point, she had no idea whether her husband was alive or dead. Oh God. Please God, no. Please let him be okay. Nicole, I need you to try to stay calm. Can you answer some questions for us? Yes. Yes, of course. Whatever you need. How long have you and James been married? 19 years. We've been together since college. What does James do for work? He's a detective. He works for Portland Police. Homicide Division. Can you tell us how all 3 of you ended up at that CVS parking lot tonight? I was there earlier. I had to pick up a prescription. I didn't know Marcus would be there too. It was just a coincidence. I was leaving the pharmacy when I ran into Marcus in the parking lot. He said he was getting cold medicine for his kids. We started talking about work. We've been working on this massive case together. A wrongful death lawsuit. It's been really intense. Nicole explained that she worked as a legal investigator for Marcus Bennett's law firm. She claimed their meeting at CVS was purely coincidental. According to Nicole, Marcus asked if she could spare a few minutes to discuss some urgent case details, so she agreed to leave her car and ride with him to a nearby gas station while they talked. When they returned to the CVS parking lot approximately 20 minutes later, Detective Crawford was waiting in his vehicle. When we got back, James was there. He was parked right next to my car. I knew he was coming because Emma had called me. My daughter called while Marcus and I were driving around. James had called too earlier. He wanted to know where I was. We all got out of our vehicles and started talking. Well, arguing really. Then I said I needed to leave. The girls were texting me. I had my keys in my hand, my purse. I turned to walk to my car and then I heard it. Pop, pop, pop. 3 shots. I didn't even realize what it was at first. It sounded almost like fireworks or something. I turned around and Marcus was falling. He just collapsed. There was blood everywhere. So much blood. I ran over and tried to put pressure on his wounds. Oh God, is he going to be okay? Please tell me he's going to make it. I'm sorry, Nicole. Marcus Bennett didn't survive. No. No, no, no. Oh God. The officer monitoring Nicole stepped out briefly to consult with the lead detectives. While alone in the room, Nicole received unexpected news about her husband's condition. Detective Crawford is stable. The bullet grazed his skull but didn't penetrate. He's awake and talking with investigators right now. Oh, thank God. Thank you. Thank you so much. The injury looks worse than it is. Like you said, it basically just grazed him. He's going to be okay. Can I see him? Can I talk to James? Not right now. Not until we complete our investigation. It's going to be several hours at least. When Nicole mentioned where James was positioned when she and Marcus returned to the parking lot, she said he was sitting in his truck. She explained that her marriage had been deteriorating for approximately 4 years. She and James had discussed separation multiple times. According to Nicole, James had become increasingly jealous and suspicious about her relationship with Marcus Bennett. James has been convinced for months that something was going on between Marcus and me. Which isn't true. I mean, Marcus is married. He has 4 kids. I know his wife Jennifer. Their whole family. But James wouldn't listen. He kept accusing me. Despite Nicole's denials, investigators would later discover extensive text messages and emails between Nicole and Marcus that painted a very different picture. The communications revealed they had been engaged in an intense romantic affair for at least 8 months. The messages showed late-night exchanges filled with expressions of love, discussions about leaving their respective spouses, and detailed plans for secret meetings. In one particularly damning email, Marcus had written to Nicole about how he imagined their life together once they were both free from their marriages. Nicole had responded with equal enthusiasm, describing how suffocated she felt in her marriage and how Marcus made her feel alive again. James got out of his truck and immediately confronted Marcus. They were arguing, getting in each other's faces. It was getting heated, but nobody was throwing punches or anything. Then a car drove past us. I turned away for just a second. That's when I heard the shots. When I looked back, both of them were on the ground. Nicole, I need to ask you something important. The security cameras show you arriving earlier, getting into Marcus's truck, and leaving together. We can see James arriving while you were gone. He went into the store looking for you, then came back out and waited. But unfortunately, the cameras don't cover the area where the shooting happened. You're the only witness. So we need you to be completely honest with us about what you saw. I understand. I am being honest. The CVS security footage corroborated parts of Nicole's story. The cameras captured her arrival, her departure with Marcus, and Detective Crawford's agitated search through the store. The footage showed James moving through the aisles with purpose, clearly looking for someone. His body language conveyed frustration and anger. When he didn't find Nicole inside, he returned to his truck and waited for nearly 15 minutes before her return. But the critical moments of the shooting occurred in a blind spot. Nicole remained the sole eyewitness to what actually transpired. Are you willing to continue talking with us voluntarily? You're here as a witness right now, but we need your full cooperation to piece this together. Yes, absolutely. I want to help. I need to help. I can only imagine how traumatic this has been. You work in legal investigations, so you understand how important it is that we match witness statements with physical evidence. I know. I do this kind of work every day. Then help us understand exactly what happened. Start from the beginning. It really started at home this morning. James and I had a huge fight. He accused me again of having an affair with Marcus. I denied it. I told him Marcus was just my boss and colleague. But James wouldn't believe me. He said I'd been distant for months. Different. He said he could tell something was going on. Nicole described increasing tension at home. She admitted feeling emotionally connected to Marcus but continued to deny any physical relationship. She explained that working closely with Marcus on complicated cases had created a bond between them, which her husband misinterpreted. What Nicole didn't tell investigators in that initial interview was that the fight that morning had been particularly explosive. According to their teenage daughters, Emma and Sophie, their parents had been screaming at each other for over an hour. Emma later told investigators that she heard her father say he had proof of the affair. He mentioned finding suspicious charges on their credit card and having checked Nicole's phone records. The tension in the Crawford household had been building for months, with James becoming increasingly withdrawn and Nicole spending more and more time at the law office. After our fight this morning, I left to run errands. I went to CVS to pick up my anxiety medication. That's when I ran into Marcus. He suggested we go somewhere to talk about the case. We drove to the Shell station on Powell Boulevard. We were gone maybe 20 or 25 minutes. While we were driving around, Emma called. My daughter. She's 16. She asked where I was. I lied and told her I was with my friend Michelle. I didn't want her to know I was with Marcus because I knew she'd tell James, and he was already upset enough. But Emma did tell him. Yes, I guess she did. Then James called me directly. He asked if I was with Marcus. I told him the truth. I said yes, we were just talking. Then Marcus grabbed my phone and got on the line with James. He told James we were just discussing work, just talking about life. But then Marcus got aggressive. He said something threatening to James. Something like he'd crush his head or break his face. I grabbed the phone back and told James I'd be home soon. This phone call would prove to be a critical piece of evidence. Phone records showed the call lasted nearly 4 minutes. According to Emma, who overheard part of her father's side of the conversation, James had become enraged during the call. He told Emma he was going to the CVS to confront both of them. Emma begged him not to go, sensing that something terrible might happen. But James was determined. He grabbed his jacket and left the house in a fury. When you returned to CVS, James was waiting? Yes. Marcus parked his truck. We both got out. James approached us immediately. Marcus is very confrontational by nature. He's a defense attorney. Very alpha male personality. He works out constantly, does CrossFit, bodybuilding. He's physically intimidating. He got right up in James's face. Really close. Chest to chest. I tried to intervene. I told them both to stop. This was ridiculous. What were they saying to each other? Marcus was taunting James. Asking him what he was going to do. Asking if James was going to hit him. James kept saying he wouldn't hit Marcus, that he just wanted answers about what was happening with his wife. Marcus kept mocking him. Calling him weak. Saying things like, "You don't want to do this, you'll lose your job." He was really trying to provoke James. He was saying things like, "She doesn't love you anymore, man. She hasn't loved you for years. Why don't you just accept it and move on?" I remember James's face when Marcus said that. He looked devastated. Absolutely crushed. But then the hurt turned to rage. Then what happened? I said I was leaving. I told them both this was insane and I needed to go home. The girls were calling me. I had my keys out. I turned toward my car. That's when I heard the shots. Pop, pop, pop. Just like that. I spun around and both of them were down on the ground. There was so much blood. I didn't know what to do. I ran to Marcus first because he looked worse. I tried to stop the bleeding with my hands. Then I called 911. I was screaming for help. Nicole's account sounded plausible, but investigators had significant concerns. If her story was accurate, who pulled the trigger? How did two men sustain gunshot wounds from a single weapon? The positioning of the bodies and the blood spatter patterns suggested that both men had been standing close together when the shots were fired. Forensic evidence indicated that Marcus had been shot twice in the chest and once in the abdomen. All 3 wounds were fatal. Detective Crawford had been shot once, with a bullet grazing his skull just above his right ear. The trajectory of this wound was particularly puzzling to investigators. Before pressing Nicole further on this crucial question, detectives wanted to explore the nature of her relationship with Marcus Bennett. Nicole, I need to ask you directly. Were you and Marcus involved romantically? No. Have you ever been intimate with Marcus? No. Have you had a sexual relationship with him? No. We're friends and colleagues. That's all. But you admit you're emotionally attached to him? Yes. I suppose I am. He's been very supportive. He makes me feel valued and appreciated. Things at home with James have been difficult for years. Marcus listens to me. He encourages me. He makes me feel confident and capable. I guess you could say I've developed feelings for him. But we've never crossed any lines. The truth, as investigators would soon discover through seized phones and computers, was dramatically different. The digital evidence revealed passionate exchanges, secret meetings, and explicit messages between Nicole and Marcus spanning many months. Their affair was serious and ongoing. Hotel records showed they had checked into at least 3 different establishments over a 6-month period. Credit card statements revealed expensive dinners, gifts, and even a weekend trip to Seattle that both had taken under the pretense of attending a legal conference. Text messages between them used pet names and discussed intimate details of their relationship. In one message, Marcus had told Nicole he was going to leave his wife. Nicole had responded that she was planning to file for divorce. They had created an entire fantasy future together. Nicole, there's something else we need to address. When officers arrived, they found a handgun near the scene. Can you tell us about that gun? When I looked up from trying to help Marcus, I saw James standing. He was staggering toward me. I thought maybe someone else was shooting at us and I screamed at him to get down. Then I saw the gun on the ground near where James had been lying. I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if there was still danger. James was walking toward the gun, reaching down for it. I ran over and grabbed it before he could get to it. I didn't want anyone else to get hurt. I was terrified. So I picked it up and threw it away from us. I tossed it into the middle of the parking area, away from everyone. Nicole's explanation for why her fingerprints were on the weapon seemed reasonable on the surface. However, it didn't answer the fundamental question that haunted investigators. How had two men been shot with the same gun? More importantly, why would a trained police detective use his wife's small-caliber handgun when he had immediate access to his own service weapon and personal firearms? So you're saying you picked up the weapon after the shooting? Yes. James was trying to grab it and I got to it first. I threw it away so no one else would get hurt. Do you recognize that gun? No. I've never seen it before. Never seen it in your life? No. I didn't really look at it. I just knew I needed to get it away from everyone. Investigators knew this was a critical lie. The weapon was registered to Nicole Crawford. She had purchased it 2 years earlier at a sporting goods store in Beaverton. The sales receipt showed she had also bought ammunition and a carrying case. When confronted with this information later in the interview, Nicole changed her story. She claimed she had forgotten about the gun, saying it had been stored in her car's glove compartment for security purposes and she rarely thought about it. But this raised even more questions. If the gun was in her vehicle, how did it end up at the scene of the shooting? Crime scene technicians conducted a gunshot residue test on Nicole's hands to determine if she had fired the weapon. The test came back negative. However, this wasn't definitive proof of innocence. Gunshot residue can be eliminated through numerous means including washing hands, wiping hands on clothing, perspiration, or simply the passage of time. Additionally, small-caliber weapons like the one used in this shooting often produce minimal residue. The 9mm handgun found at the scene was known for leaving relatively little trace evidence on a shooter's hands. Let me ask you something else, Nicole. You said you turned away right before the shots were fired. Is that correct? Yes. I was walking toward my car. So you didn't actually see who pulled the trigger? No. I heard the shots and turned around. Could James have already been holding the gun when you turned away? I don't know. I don't think so. Everything happened so fast. Could Marcus have been holding it? I don't see how. The gun was on the ground after the shooting. This is where your story becomes difficult for us, Nicole. We have 2 men shot. 1 gun. And you're the only person who witnessed what happened, but you didn't actually see the shooting itself. I know how it sounds, but that's what happened. I turned away for maybe 2 seconds and then I heard the shots. The lead detective leaned back in his chair, studying Nicole's face carefully. Her story had already changed several times during the interview. First, she claimed not to recognize the gun. Then she admitted it might have been hers but she wasn't sure. Now she was saying it had been in her car the whole time. The inconsistencies were piling up. Moreover, her emotional responses seemed calculated. She cried at appropriate moments but could turn the tears off instantly when answering specific questions. Her body language suggested she was carefully constructing her narrative rather than simply recounting traumatic memories. Despite the inconsistencies in her story and her obvious lies about her relationship with Marcus, investigators released Nicole that evening. They didn't have enough evidence to charge her with a crime, and her status as the wife of a wounded police detective complicated matters. However, she would soon face consequences for her deceptions. Meanwhile, Detective James Crawford was discharged from the hospital after 3 days of observation. Detectives immediately brought him in for a formal interview. He arrived at the precinct looking exhausted and defeated. The wound on his head had been stitched and bandaged, but the psychological wounds ran much deeper. James, now that you've been released from the hospital, we need to get your full statement about what happened that night. I understand. But I haven't been able to contact my daughters or my parents or anyone since this happened. I don't even know if Nicole is okay. We need to hear your side of things. Can you walk us through what led to this? I think I need to speak with an attorney before I say anything else. That's your right. In that case, we're going to transport you to the county jail. You're being charged with the murder of Marcus Bennett. Detective Crawford exercised his right to remain silent. Based on the evidence gathered, including positive gunshot residue tests conducted on James at the hospital, investigators believed he was the shooter. The GSR test showed significant residue on both of his hands, consistent with firing a weapon. Blood spatter analysis indicated that James had been standing very close to Marcus when the fatal shots were fired. Witnesses from nearby businesses reported hearing what sounded like an argument escalating into shouting just before the gunshots rang out. But one haunting question remained unanswered. Had James been shot during a struggle for the weapon, or had he turned the gun on himself after shooting Marcus? Ballistics analysis revealed that Marcus was shot from at least 4 feet away, making it unlikely the shooting occurred during a close-quarters struggle. The angles of entry for all 3 bullets that struck Marcus were consistent with the shooter standing in a stable position and taking deliberate aim. This contradicted any theory of an accidental discharge or shots fired during a physical altercation. The wound to Detective Crawford's head presented its own mystery. The bullet had traveled at an upward angle, grazing his skull rather than penetrating. Forensic experts debated whether this was consistent with a self-inflicted wound or with a shot fired during a struggle. Some argued that if James had shot himself, the weapon would likely have been pressed directly against his head, resulting in a contact wound rather than a graze. Others suggested that James might have attempted suicide but flinched at the last moment, causing the gun to move as he pulled the trigger. If Nicole's testimony was to be believed, only Detective Crawford knew the complete truth. But James wasn't talking. He remained silent throughout the booking process and in all subsequent interactions with investigators. His attorney advised him that given the physical evidence, particularly the gunshot residue, his best strategy was to say nothing. At trial, the prosecution argued that James Crawford, consumed by jealousy and rage over his wife's affair, had confronted Marcus Bennett with lethal intent. Deputy District Attorney Patricia Reynolds painted a picture of a man who had reached his breaking point after months of suspicion and betrayal. She presented the text messages and emails between Nicole and Marcus, showing the jury the extent of the affair. She called Emma Crawford to the stand, and the teenager tearfully recounted the fight between her parents that morning and her father's ominous words as he left the house. The prosecution's theory was straightforward. James Crawford had discovered his wife with her lover. He confronted them in the CVS parking lot. When Marcus Bennett taunted him and the confrontation escalated, James retrieved Nicole's handgun from her vehicle and shot Marcus 3 times. Then, either overcome with remorse or attempting to stage the scene to look like mutual combat, James shot himself in the head. But his aim was off, and the bullet only grazed his skull instead of killing him as intended. The defense attorney, Robert Chin, presented an alternative narrative. He argued that the shooting occurred during a heated physical altercation. Marcus Bennett, described by multiple witnesses as aggressive and confrontational, had attacked Detective Crawford. During the struggle, Nicole's gun, which she kept in her car for protection, had somehow entered the equation. In the chaos of the fight, the weapon discharged multiple times. Marcus was struck fatally. James was also wounded. The exact sequence of events was unclear, but Chin argued that this ambiguity created reasonable doubt about premeditation and intent. He emphasized that no one actually witnessed the shooting itself, not even Nicole, who had turned away at the critical moment. Without a clear eyewitness account, how could the jury be certain of what really happened? The defense also raised questions about Nicole's credibility and potential involvement. Chin pointed out her multiple lies to investigators, her changing stories, and her suspicious behavior. He suggested that Nicole might have played a more active role than she admitted. Perhaps she had handed the gun to her husband. Perhaps she had encouraged the confrontation. Perhaps she had even pulled the trigger herself. The negative gunshot residue test on her hands didn't exonerate her, Chin argued, because such tests were unreliable under certain conditions. The trial lasted 3 weeks and captivated the Portland community. Here was a veteran police detective accused of murder. His wife was having an affair with a prominent attorney. The case had all the elements of a crime drama. Local news outlets covered every detail. Legal analysts debated the evidence on television. The courthouse was packed daily with spectators and media representatives. The jury ultimately found James Crawford guilty of second-degree murder. They concluded that while the prosecution had not proven premeditation beyond reasonable doubt, the evidence clearly showed that James had intentionally shot Marcus Bennett during a confrontation. The wound to James's own head remained unexplained, but the jury apparently decided this mystery didn't create enough doubt about his culpability for Marcus's death. Judge Michael Harrison sentenced James Crawford to 28 years in the Oregon State Penitentiary. During the sentencing hearing, Marcus Bennett's widow, Jennifer, gave a victim impact statement that left many in the courtroom in tears. She described her husband as a devoted father who had made terrible mistakes but didn't deserve to die in a parking lot. She spoke about her 4 children growing up without their father. She expressed anger not just at James Crawford but also at Nicole for the affair that had set these tragic events in motion. Nicole Crawford was not charged in connection with the shooting. Despite the lies she told investigators and the suspicions that surrounded her, prosecutors concluded they didn't have sufficient evidence to bring charges. However, justice would catch up with her in an unexpected way. 14 months after the CVS parking lot shooting, financial irregularities at Marcus Bennett's law firm came to light during the settlement of his estate. An audit revealed that someone had been systematically embezzling funds from client trust accounts. The trail led directly to Nicole Crawford. Prosecutors alleged that she had stolen over $45,000 from the law firm where she had worked as a legal investigator. The embezzlement had occurred over a 2-year period, during the same time frame as her affair with Marcus. Nicole had used her position and knowledge of the firm's accounting systems to divert small amounts of money from various client accounts. She had been careful, never taking enough at once to trigger immediate attention. But over time the thefts added up. Investigators discovered that Nicole had used the stolen money to fund her secret life with Marcus. The hotel stays, the expensive dinners, the gifts, the Seattle trip, all had been financed with embezzled funds. When confronted with the overwhelming evidence, Nicole pleaded guilty to avoid a lengthy trial. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison followed by 10 years of probation. She was also ordered to make full restitution to the victims of her theft. During her embezzlement trial, the presiding judge made a stunning statement. Judge Richard Morrison told Nicole that in his 29 years on the bench, he had never encountered a defendant who changed her story as frequently as she did. He called her credibility non-existent. He noted that she had given at least 4 different versions of events to various investigators and had lied repeatedly under oath. He expressed doubt that the court had heard the truth even during her guilty plea. This judicial rebuke raised fresh questions about what really happened in that CVS parking lot. If Nicole was such an unreliable narrator, could any part of her account of the shooting be trusted? The full truth may never be known. Detective James Crawford maintains his innocence from behind bars. In a rare jailhouse interview with a Portland newspaper, he claimed that Marcus Bennett had attacked him and that the gun had gone off accidentally during the struggle. He insisted he never intended to kill anyone. He suggested that Nicole knew more than she had revealed to authorities. But without concrete evidence to support his claims, his appeals have been unsuccessful. Nicole Crawford served her full 3-year prison sentence and was released in 2023. She remains on probation and is required to make monthly restitution payments. She has kept an extremely low profile since her release. Her daughters, now young adults, have reportedly had minimal contact with her. Emma and Sophie Crawford were raised primarily by James's parents after both of their parents went to prison. The psychological trauma of that night continues to affect them. Marcus Bennett's 4 children have also struggled in the aftermath of their father's death. Jennifer Bennett eventually remarried, but the family has never fully recovered from the tragedy. And the haunting question remains. In that CVS parking lot on a cold November evening, what really happened when 2 men who loved the same woman came face to face, and only one walked away? Was it a crime of passion by a jealous husband pushed beyond his limits? Was it a tragic accident during a physical confrontation? Or was there a third possibility that no one has fully considered? Some investigators privately believe that Nicole Crawford orchestrated the entire encounter. They suspect she deliberately arranged for James and Marcus to meet, knowing that violence was likely. Whether she intended for someone to die remains unclear. But the suspicious timing, her presence at the scene, and her ever-changing stories suggest she may have been more of a puppet master than an innocent bystander. What do you think really happened that night? Was Detective Crawford a cold-blooded killer who murdered his wife's lover in a jealous rage? Or was he a desperate man caught in an impossible situation who acted in self-defense or witnessed an accident spiral out of control? And what about Nicole? Was she simply a woman trapped between 2 men, or did she play a more calculated role in the tragedy? The questions linger, and the answers remain elusive, buried somewhere in the lies, the conflicting accounts, and the deadly silence of that parking lot where one man died and another's life was forever destroyed.